On today's Locked On Giants podcast, what can we learn from the New York Giants' top 30 visits? Plus, we're going to take a look at some buy-sell opportunities, and we'll have a final prediction before the Giants go on the clock tonight in the NFL draft. That's all coming your way next on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it's a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on the classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or on Google Play. Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. My name is Patricia Traina, your host, credentialed member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for Giants Country over on the Fan Nation Network, part of SI.com. You can find us at SI.com/NFL/Giants. And a big welcome on in to my Blue Crew community members, my newcomers, my everydayers, and everybody in between. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend it with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, we have made it. It is draft day. Yes, even though you might be watching this video on Wednesday night, it's still draft day. We are here. We have made it. No more speculation, no more smoke screens, no more rumors, no more mock drafts. We're going to have answers in a matter of hours. And on today's show, as we get you ready for the round one of the NFL draft, we're going to talk about the New York Giants' top 30 visits. What can we learn from them? And I have a list of most of the visits that were made, and I have some observations from the list. So we'll talk about that. Also, did Joe Schoen give up a little bit of a clue in an interview that he did with the team's website? He might have, and I'm going to tell you what I think the clue is and what it could potentially mean for the first round of the draft. Then coming up in segment 2, we'll look at some buy-sell opportunities. Now, these are based on rumors, obviously. I'll tell you if I think that they're going to happen or they're not going to happen. And then last but not least, I'm going to give you a final prediction. What do I think is going to happen in the draft? Not what I want to happen in the draft. We all know by now what I want to happen in the draft, but what do I think is going to happen? So that is our agenda tonight. Thank you again for tuning in. Let's get started. And we're going to kick things off with a look at the top 30. Now, it's interesting. Past GMs for the Giants have treated the top 30 in kind of different ways. Sometimes they use it to get more information on a prospect. Sometimes they use it to throw up smoke screens. Sometimes they use it to eliminate prospects or to solidify opinions. Now, I'm not saying that the Giants don't do all that, but what I have found in going back and looking at Joe Schoen's history with top 30 visits is that just about all of the picks in the first 3 rounds made top 30 visits with the Giants. All right. So, and I'm not including pro days, by the way, local pro days, which, those are kids who have their hometowns are in the tri-state area or who attend schools in the Giants region. So, like the Monmouths and the Armies and the Penn States and all that stuff, that's all considered local pro days. Rutgers is another one. But let's talk about the top 30. So in 2022, amongst the players that came in for a top 30 visit, Evan Neal, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Cordell Flott. All right. So Neal and Thibodeau, first round picks that year. Flott was a 3rd round pick. Last year, the Giants had Deonte Banks, John Michael Schmitz, Jalen Hyatt, and Trey Hawkins. Those 4 were known to have come in for top 30 visits. And of course, Banks, Schmitz, and Hyatt all round 1, 2, and 3 last year. And Hawkins, I believe, was a 6. So there is some merit to those top 30 visits, and at least under Schoen. And we have seen that, that's where if you're looking at the list, if you have the list of top 30 visits, and granted, the list is never complete and it's based off of reports and whatnot, but you can kind of take a look at that list and then say to yourself, okay, where might the Giants have a round one grade? Where might they have a round two grade, and so on and so forth? And where are their needs? And you can kind of draw your own conclusions as to what they might do in the first, second, and third rounds of the draft. All right. So, in looking at this year's top 30, the most frequent positions, no surprise here, include quarterback, in which there were 5, pass catcher, that includes receiver and tight end, 5 got visits, offensive line, 5 visits. Cornerback, interestingly, not as many visits, which was kind of curious because now it makes you wonder if, are they going to maybe wait till late day 2 or day 3 for a cornerback? But let's talk a little bit more about that. So the Giants, I think, we could probably mostly agree that quarterback is on the agenda. I know there are those of you out there who say, no, don't bother. Daniel Jones is it. Just get him pass catchers and whatnot. There are 2 schools of thought on this. One is if the roster is solidified, you can maybe get away with a game manager type of quarterback. Or you could say, okay, you know what? The roster's not what it needs to be. So let's get the quarterback and let's build around him. Now, I always found that to be kind of interesting because to build around any quarterback, it doesn't matter if it's Daniel Jones, Drake May, JJ McCarthy, or whoever. You need certain elements. You need a good offensive line. You need some reliable receivers, including tight ends. You need a good running game. And of course, you need a good scheme. So the Giants had, put an emphasis on that. And really, I don't know that, there are specific players that you could say that would be a better fit for, say, Drake May than Daniel Jones or vice versa. But I always found that kind of interesting. Now, here's something else that I found interesting. In an interview that Joe Shane did for Giants.com, and this came out on Wednesday, he happened to mention that they have first round grades on 15 players. Last year, they only had first round grades on 11 players. All right, so what does that mean? What does that potentially tell us? Well, I went in and I looked at the top 30 list, and I'm guessing here now. I don't know how the Giants have these guys graded, but I came up with 8 guys that I think would qualify for first round grades, and they are as follows. Quarterbacks, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, and JJ McCarthy. Receivers, Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, and Roma Dunze. Offensive lineman, Joe Alt, and cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry. All right, so that's 8 guys out of the 15 that Shane said they have first round grades on. Those are, again, my guesses. I don't know how the Giants have them graded, but I would guess that those guys have first round grades. So another thing that, that little nugget that Shane shared about having first round grades on 15 players is now if they want to trade down a little bit, not all the way down, but if they want to make a trade down, now you have a rough idea as to maybe how far down they'll go. Now, some of you will probably say, but hey, last year they had a first round grade on Deonte Banks and they were able to get him. Yeah, but they traded up to get him. So sometimes just, knowing that little detail, you can kind of predict, especially if you see, Drake May goes off the board at 3 and now it's like, okay, do the Giants stay put or do they move up or do they move back? You can almost guess. And really, the longer the Giants sit on the clock when their time comes up, you have to think that maybe something's brewing. So I found that to be an interesting little nugget that was dropped by Joe Shane. And he also said one other thing during his presser a week ago. He mentioned that he anticipated several receivers could fly off the board in the first round. But he also said that this is a very deep receiver class. So you kind of get the impression that maybe he's not going to panic and say, oh my God, I've got to get one of the big 3. I mean, again, it could be a smokescreen. I'm just trying to read the tea leaves here as best as I can for you. But interesting twists and turns to this draft. And Shane has done a great job, by the way, of playing the cards close to the vest. Nobody knows what he's doing, despite what the insiders and the media have to say. Nobody really knows what he's going to do, and we probably won't have a better idea until we're about a couple of hours outside of the draft. That's when things really start to solidify and the information starts to flow a little bit better. So we'll see what it all boils down to. But coming up next, I have a couple of scenarios in a segment that I'm going to call buying or selling. I'll tell you what the scenarios are and if I believe them to be true, if I'm going to buy or if I'm going to sell them because I think they're false. That's right after this. Hey, Giant fans, we've all been there, either as a player or as a fan. It's halftime and the scoreboard is not looking good. You're feeling low, not sure if you or your team can pull out a win. That's when you dig deep. Lift your head up and say to yourself, time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists, and take as much of my friend's money as I possibly can. That's right, the smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's the monopoly that you love, but it's on your phone, available anytime, and comes with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress with your buddies. And there's so much to do. You can play on countless dynamic monopoly boards, make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball, and even charge other players rent for your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put your game face on, and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or on Google Play. Hey, Giant fans, it's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball is in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. So what are you waiting for? Visit fanduel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, and coming up on Locked On Giants, wall-to-wall draft coverage. That's right, folks. I'm going to get you video shorts when the picks are made. I'll give you any necessary updates if there's trades or anything like that. And then as soon as round one is over, I'm going to tape a show. So it's probably going to drop a little late, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to obviously talk about the first round pick. I'm going to grade the pick. I'm going to share with you any information that comes out as a result of the pick. And we're just going to do that all weekend long, which means we're going to have shows going into the weekend and right into next week because there's going to be so much to cover. Hope you will check it out. And if you watch on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, click the little notification bell so that you don't miss any notifications anytime I post a new video. And of course, it would also help if you would like the videos. That helps us tremendously. So thank you in advance. All right, let's get on to the next order of business, buying and selling. All right, now there have been some additional rumors, reports, and it's interesting. I've been looking through all of them from the national people, and I just find that some of them kind of contradicts some of what's been said and whatnot. So I'm curious to see who actually hits upon these rumors the correct way. But I'm going to give you a couple, and I'm going to tell you if I'm buying or selling. All right. The first one, and I believe this was reported by Dan Graziano over at ESPN, mentioned that the Giants are interested in Michael Penix Jr., quarterback at Washington, if Drake May doesn't materialize. I'm selling that one, folks. I'm not buying it. No disrespect to Michael Penix Jr. I think he's going to be a fine quarterback. And yes, I know that Brian Dable, Joe Shane went to Washington's pro day, but every time, the brass goes to a pro day, people automatically assume it's for a quarterback. It could be for something else, a different position, or it could be for multiple positions. For example, I have heard that the Giants think very highly, for example, of Washington offensive linemen, also of Wisconsin offensive linemen. So just because they're going out to, to see a school that just so happens to have a quarterback in the draft, doesn't mean that that's who they're necessarily looking at. Now, amongst the other players for the Huskies that the Giants could have been looking at, Troy Fontanu, an offensive tackle, Roger Rosengarten, another offensive tackle, receivers, another possibility. I know Roma Dunze did not work out at the Washington Pro Day, but Jalen Polk, I believe, did. So maybe they were looking at him. Look, I've said that I believe the Giants could use another offensive tackle. So maybe that's what they were looking at when they were out at Washington. And don't just, Shane has been crafty enough to where, it doesn't necessarily mean that just because he's going to one particular school, he's looking at the quarterback. When he went to USC, for example, yeah, I mean, you had Caleb Williams there, but Shane himself has says that everybody kind of knows that the Bears are going to take Caleb Williams. So why would he go out there? People would say if he wasn't looking at the quarterback. Well, he was probably looking at other players in that class. So you just can't draw conclusions and say that's who he was looking at, Michael Penix. So I'm not really buying that the Giants are looking or seriously interested in Michael Penix Jr. Would I hate it? No, but I can't just with the the fact that he's a lefty and now maybe you have to readjust everything, now doesn't mean that you move Andrew Thomas to the left side. How do you set up your blind side protection for a lefty? I don't know that I would buy it, especially after the Giants just invested a lot of money to extend Andrew Thomas last year. So, but they could have another angle that I'm not thinking of, but we'll see, obviously. Another rumor that has really been picking up steam is that the Giants are considering trading up. Now, weeks ago, I would have said, no way, they've got too many needs. I don't see them doing it. I don't think it makes sense to do it. I'm starting to soften on that. I have been softening on that. Now, if Drake May is there at number 3, I do believe the Giants will try to work something out with the New England Patriots. Now, why have I changed my mind? Because in going back and looking at the draft history of the Giants, this whole idea that I had that they need as many assets as possible because they have so many holes. It's not quantity, it's quality of the picks. And they proved that, like I said on yesterday's show, in 2004 when they traded for Eli Manning, who was the first overall pick by the Chargers. And then the following year, the Giants only had 4 draft picks, 3 of whom ended up being studs for them and helping them win at least 1 Super Bowl, if not 2. So here's what I think. So Joel Corey of CBS Sports thinks that, maybe a trade package of the Giants' first and second round picks this year, plus a 2025 first round pick could potentially entice the Patriots to give up the number 3 overall pick. I don't know that will do it. The Patriots need a quarterback as well, but they might say to themselves, hey, maybe we'll just roll with Jacoby Brissett and call it a day, and just build the team up because we have so many needs. And it might behoove the Patriots actually to trade down because they have so many needs. It might behoove them to where, this report of them wanting, a historic or an unprecedented draft haul to move down. Maybe it's not true. Maybe, multiple picks will get it done. So I could see that being a scenario. Would that be my preference? No. I think, if anything, I would like to see the Giants trade down and get some picks. But, that's my preference. What I think and what I want versus what the Giants think and what they plan to do, 2 totally different things. All right. Now, here's the other factor and why I think a trade up is a potential thing to happen. In 2025, if all the Giants end up having to give up is their first round pick, yeah, it's, you want to have the first round pick, but they're going to have a bunch of picks in rounds 2 through 7, including potentially 2 picks in round 4. All right. If they get the comp pick for having lost Xavier McKinney, which I believe they will, and 2 picks in round 5. So they will have plenty of picks to continue filling in roster holes. Again, you want the first round pick if you have it, but who's to say that maybe they don't look to trade to get back into the bottom of the first round? The reason why you want that first round pick is so that you can put a player on the 5-year plan if you find somebody you really like. But again, they could look to trade up some of those assets, or they could just sit tight and just go with the quality over quantity approach. So, look, quarterback next year, everybody has said that the class isn't as deep as it is this year. And I believe that if the Giants are going to take a quarterback, this is the year they got to get it. If they have to trade up to do it, then so be it. Let it be. All right. I mean, I'm not going to sit there and say, what are you doing? I'm not going to, question it. Would I do it? Probably not, but that's why I'm not a GM. That's why I'm just a media member, podcaster. But that's my preference. I still want to see them take the receiver, but I also want to see them address the quarterback situation, because I do think that needs to be addressed. So, all right, coming up next, final predictions. What do I think is going to happen? Not what I want to happen, but what I think is going to happen. Stick around and I'll tell you right after this. Hey, Giant fans, when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. They help you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but who might be open to the perfect role. 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours when they use LinkedIn. And did you know that LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier? They've just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process quicker. Find out why 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring by posting your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, and it is draft day. That's right. If you're watching this on Thursday, we're going to find out very soon who the Giants like, what they were going to do, how the draft unfolds. Loads of surprises. There always are. Every year, somebody does something that turns the draft on its ear, and I can't wait to see what it is. And moreover, I can't wait to start digging in and analyzing the picks and the fits and all that stuff, because this mock drafts and stuff and all the speculation. I mean, after a while, we've been at it for 4 months, and after a while, it's like, okay, you can only take it so far before it starts to wear thin. But anyway, what do I think the Giants are going to do in round 1? Not what I want. We all know what I want, and that's Roma Dunze at number 6. But what do I think the Giants are going to do? Well, Shane didn't say this at his presser, but he's been making calls or preliminary calls about moving up. It's all part of the due diligence for him to sit there and say, well, I've gotten a bunch of calls, from teams behind me. Folks, I guarantee you he is making calls to the teams in front of him to inquire about what it might take to move up, so that this way they have something prepared that they can go back when, the time comes and they're on the clock. And if they need to, they can kind of, tweak an offer here and there. So the belief is that the Giants want Drake May of UNC. All right. I would not be surprised if Shane has been in touch with the Patriots. The Patriots, as I mentioned before, there was a report, I think, by Tom Curran, who covers the Patriots, that the Patriots want an unprecedented deal, but I don't think they're going to get it. They're in the driver's seat where they can sit tight and they can take the quarterback if they want it, but do they have Drake May as their top guy, Or do they want, maybe a Jaden Daniels who's probably going to go to the Commanders? Well, if the Giants sit tight uh, at 6, I don't think they're going to get a quarterback. I think the quarterbacks will be gone. I also think we have to keep an eye out for Minnesota, who is said to want a quarterback, as is Denver, who is said to want a quarterback. So, what I think is going to happen is I do think the Giants are going to work out a trade to move up. If Drake May is there at number 3, they will work something out. And if it comes down to throwing in an extra pick, if they are that convinced that Drake May is the guy, then they will do it. Why haggle over one pick? Would that leave the Giants cupboard bare this year? Yes. But then again, are we really expecting the Giants to make the playoffs this year or go deep into the playoffs even if they make it? No. They've got to build, all right? So it's not so much about winning it this year. I mean, there is pressure to get better, but it's not about winning the Super Bowl this year. That's down the line as part of the rebuild process. I think, ownership is going to be patient with Dable and Shane. If they do take a quarterback, if they do get the quarterback, they're going to have to let Dable and the coaching staff work with that guy to get him ready. I do believe he's going to sit a year, the quarterback is. And, look, might as well run it back with Daniel Jones. He's going to be your best option at this point, regardless of who you take, because he's most experienced. And if he's healthy, he's going to be your best option. It's just that simple. Now, I also think the Giants are going to go quarterback because Shane did comment that the wide receiver class is very, very deep. So there's not as much pressure to get a number 1 receiver at 6, where maybe they can get one a little later on in the draft. All right. Now, if they trade round 2, their second round pick, could they maybe get one in the 3rd round? It's possible. Is there going to be a run on receivers as Shane predicted? That's very possible as well. But it's said to be a very deep class. And I have heard from people in the scouting community that the class is probably so deep that you could probably get a good player as late as round 4. So we'll have to see if that works out. So yeah, I think the Giants do get their quarterback. I do think there would be a trade up. Would I do it that way? No. But I tend to be on the conservative side when it comes to these things, which is why, I will never be a GM. I wouldn't want to be a GM because these decisions are they're too much. One wrong decision and you can totally break your franchise. So that's how I see it playing out. Now, we'll see how Shane sees it playing out. And as I said earlier, I will bring you all the details that I can muster up. I'll get the show out to you as soon as I possibly can. I will be up late, obviously Thursday and Friday and into Saturday and Sunday so that you don't miss anything. Please do come back, visit us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And Giant fans, whatever else happens, just remember it's draft time. Have fun, enjoy it. Whatever happens, happens. Let's go Giants. I'll see you tomorrow, everybody.